Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to make the following statement. Begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. And my name is Cynthia Stevens and I will be chairing the hearing today. To my immediate left is Mr. Neil Harden, and to my far left is Mr. Brent McIntyre. Our assessor today is Ms. Jennifer Martins, and our secretary is Ms. Katie Sutherland. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions for taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant. Following the swearing in, we will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. And can you please ensure that your mobile phones are turned to silent? Katie will swear you in. I'm not sure I turned mine to silent.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Help you God? I do. Thank you. Please state your name. Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Okay, thank you, Katie. So the first item on today's docket is 790 Wellington Avenue, and we are dealing with assessed value. So Ms. Martins, when you're ready.
Thank you. This is file number 19-3836, roll number 13031222000. The assessed value is $5,288,000. Classification is 40 institutional property with a liability status of S. Taxable with state tax exempt. This is an apartment building, one building, 6 stories, built in 1979, with 68 suites and 12 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, we have our income value summary. For suite mix, we have 11 bachelor units, 47 one-bedroom units, and 10 two-bedroom units. The average monthly rent per unit is $743.85. We've applied a 2.6% vacancy rate, a 55.28% expense rate, and a 5% cap, giving us the $5,288,000. On page 4, we have our capitalization rates. On page 5, we have capitalization rate evidence. This page, the information on this page is not specific to the subject property. It's to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates on page 4. On page 6, we have some Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And from page 7 to page 8, we have income and expense information that was submitted from the subject property. And on page 9, there's a map showing where the subject property is, and then an overhead picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions?
Anything model driven?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
Page 7 on the income and expense form, there's parking income. Is that included in your valuation?
We don't include it separately, it's involved in the rent.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Mr. Hardy?
We're just looking at the NOI, but they claim a negative NOI on this. It seems, some maintenance and repair seems to be high at $136,000.
I believe that this property receives some subsidies.
Oh, is it rent geared to income?
It's a class code 40.
Yes, cost for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I know that. Okay, let's go.
And I have no questions that haven't already been asked, so Mr. Navarro, when you're ready, please.
This is 790 Wellington Avenue, on House Incorporated. On page 2, you can see a street view picture and a panel picture. On page 3, you can see the general area. Again, this is 68 units, 11 bachelor suites, 47 one-bedroom units, and 10 two-bedroom units. There are 12 outdoor boarding stalls, about 17.6% of suites. However, this is geared towards seniors, so there would typically be a lower ratio of parking stalls for this type of building. On page 5, you can see the approach that we took. So we didn't have any reliable income information that we could draw from, so we reverted to using the CMHC rents for this property. And in terms of what we come out with, I don't think it's too much of an issue, because I think we're very close in terms of the net operating income. The only difference is the capitalization rate. And based on what I've seen of this building, and I've had a chance to look at it subsequently after the materials were filed, and my opinion is that typically we add about a 50-point margin to the established capitalization rates that we use. So if you look at our capitalization rate charts, a property from 1975 to 1997 should have a 5.75% cap rate. We've gone with a 6.25% cap rate. However, based on information that I got from the property owners after information was submitted, there's not much, I think, cause in this case to increase the capitalization rate by 50 points. So I'm suggesting that the NOI that we have is good, but the capitalization rate should be reflective of the chart that we have for this, and it should be about 5.75.
Okay, thank you.
The end value, therefore, is $4,598,400, or 400. So rounded to $4,598,000. And again, that is basically just making an adjustment on the capitalization rate, no other changes to the property and how it's valued. In terms of the income approach, I think we're fairly close to each other, so I don't really think that's an issue.
Sir, could you read me your final value there again with the new
Yes,
cap?
it's $4,598,400,
Yes. 598.
and then rounded to
598.
yes.
Thanks.
In the appendix, we've included the 3 years of income expenses. We haven't drawn it from the income here, but we've drawn from the expenses. That is my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
No, thank you.
Mr. Hardy, any questions?
No.
Mr. McIntyre?
No, I have no question.
And I have no questions either. Any need for summation by either of you? No? Okay, thank you very much. So the next item on the docket is 510 Merriman Street. And again, we are dealing with amount of assessed value, correct? So please proceed when you're ready, Ms. Martin.
Thank you. This is file number 19. 2448, roll number 1304114900. The assessed value is $1,130,000. Classification is 40, institutional property, and liability status is S, taxable, school exempt. The building is an apartment building, one building with 3 stories built in 1914. There are 21 suites with 3 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, we have our income value summary. The suite mix is 7 one-bedroom units, 6 two-bedroom units, and 8 three-bedroom units, with an average monthly rent per unit at $724.20. We've applied a vacancy rate of 2.6%, an expense rate at 58.05%, and a capitalization rate at 6.6%, giving us the $1,130,000. Page 7 and 8 is the income information that we've received from the property, and page 9 shows a small map and 2 overhead pictures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Everything is model driven.
Yes, sir.
So the 6.6 capitalization, we're not disagreeing with you on this, but
No.
it is reflective of the age of the building, the location, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I have no question.
Okay, so we take it no major upgrades that would justify changing the effective age?
None that I could find.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro,
Okay,
please proceed.
Yes. If you turn to page 8, it is the income summary for the property. So in this case, we've taken 3 years of income expenses, and we've stabilized those out. In terms of potential market gross rents, we have a potential of 181,751, vacancy rate of 3.5. That gives us an effective gross of 175,390, but we've added laundry and parking and miscellaneous income to that. That gives us an effective of 179,028. We have $112,882 of expenses. That's a 63.1% expense ratio, giving us a net operating income of 66,146. Capitalized at 6.6%, that gives us a value of $1,002,208, or $1,002,000. And in the appendix, we've also included again, the income expenses that we've looked at for 2015, 2016, and 2017. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martins?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Martin?
Okay, so you're saying that the rents that you receive are essentially market rents?
I would say for the area, yes. Yeah.
I do know your rents are a little bit higher in the cities anyhow, but.
Yeah. I don't see a subsidy in the income expenses, so I don't think we have to worry about it not being at market. It's at market.
And then the expenses are just taken from the
That's right.
mailers?
That's right. So we look at all 3 years. We basically transfer all of that information from the income expenses that you see here. We've taken the time to do that, and that is the result. Again, afterwards, we stabilize those. So yes.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no question.
Okay, so then, in terms of the expenses, what's your feeling that this is related to the age of the building?
I would say that at 1914, it's probably quite difficult to have something over 60%. Unless there have been, major renovations done to it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Any need for summation?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next item is 800 Beverly Street, amount of assessed value. Ms. Martins, you can proceed when you're ready, please.
Thank you. This is file number 19-2572. Rule number 13031569100. The assessed value is $1,797,000. Classification is 20, residential 2. Liability status is T, taxable. This is an apartment building, one building with 2 stories, built in 1970. We have 26 suites and 17 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, this property is all 1-bedroom units. The average monthly rent per unit is $679.16. We've applied a 2.6% vacancy rate, a 53.86% expense rate, and a 5.3% cap rate, giving us the $1,797,000. On page 7 and 8, we have the income information. And page 9, there's, again, the map and 2 overhead pictures. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro?
Then everything is modeled.
Everything's fine.
And in terms of the 1-bedroom units, and I know in instances where we have nothing but bachelor units, we always point out that is there an advantage to having strictly one type of unit in a building or disadvantage? Do you think in this situation that there is a disadvantage to having simply just 1-bedroom units?
I don't think there is. I think that there could be an advantage in that with doing repairs and maintenance and replacement of the fridges and stoves and things, that you have similar use of the units, and you've got similar size of units, and there's more similarities between the units, so that might help with repair and maintenance.
And again, the capitalization rate in this case, the model capitalization rate is taken into account the location, the size of the building. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no question.
Mr. Martin?
Okay, I note on page 7
Yes.
that there's a listed income at full as 199,000, and you're coming up with almost 212,000.
Mhm.
Seems to be a bit of a
Well,
significant difference there.
that would be actual, and this would be model.
Okay, thank you.
So that was my question as well. So that's good. Mr. Navarro, please proceed.
Yes, if you can please turn to page 6 of my presentation. I'll say that in this situation, the model has actually reacted quite well. We're not that far apart from each other, and we're looking at actuals in our situation. We have $203,890 in effective gross income. That includes a vacancy of 0.5% and parking income of $5,423, an expense ratio of 53.7%, giving us a net operating income of $94,304. We've capitalized that at 6%, and if you look at the previous page, at page 5, show our age categories go from 1960 to 1979. We've applied a 6% capitalization rate in this case. That gives us an estimated 2020 assessed value of $1,571,735, or $1,572,000. And again, we've included the 3 years of income and expenses that have been submitted and used for this purpose, the purpose of this estimate. And I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Martin?
Yes, one quick question. With vacancy rate at 0.5%, do you think that perhaps having a building full of one-bedroom units, it's meeting the needs and demands of the community?
I think the vacancy is low, yeah. In terms of the market rents, just give me a second here. We have an average market rent of $639 for one-bedroom units, which probably is the reason that it is fully occupied. I believe the rents are probably a bit low. That is possibly the area, Beverly. But again, in terms of the capitalization rate, we're accounting for the location also and the age of the building there. So yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin?
Okay, typically we will use market vacancy for places, this time you're not asking for a market vacancy?
I like to actually go with actuals, because it can work the other way also. For example, if there is a higher vacancy and say if it was 8%, that was the actual vacancy, and the model vacancy was 2.6%. Well, I would probably say that the actual vacancy is a reflection of what's actually happening there. And in this case, yes, we have a lower vacancy than the model, but that's what's actually happening there. And again, we've gone strictly with actuals in terms of the expenses. We've also gone with actual expenses. That being said, we're not that far apart from each other.
Also, are there any rent discounts given here, or is that full value of the rents that you know of?
I didn't see any rent discounts. Typically, that's right in the actual income expenses. They actually note the discounts.
Yeah.
So there's no discounts being noted here.
Okay, so they'd be at the rent control maximum that they could charge them.
Well, and I would say that these are probably a bit lower than if we were to look at CMLC rents for one bedroom. Typically, probably a bit lower, and that's probably why it's all occupied.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
Just one question. Is it within walking distance of the Health Sciences Center?
It's quite close, yes.
Beverly is just past McPhillips, going east, just east of McPhillips.
I mean, it's a walk.
Between McPhillips and Arlington,
Yeah.
But it's not that far away.
If you're young and healthy, it's not a difficult walk.
Or it's on a major bus route.
Yes, most apartment buildings tend to be built close to transportation. Yeah.
Okay, that was my only question.
And I have no further questions. Thank you. Any need for summation?
No, thank you.
Okay. Next item is on the docket is 486 Sherwood. And again, we're dealing with the amount of assessed value. So, Ms. Martins, you can go ahead when you're ready.
This is file number 19-3908, roll number 13-050-118500. And I'd like to ask that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation. On page 9, we've got the tracking report and with the signature, and we've got the envelope. On the following pages, there's the income expense, copy of an income and expense mailer that was sent to 6470514 Manitoba Limited.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions?
I have no questions.
Are you contesting this, or
I won't contest this.
you don't? Okay, so the non-cooperation will be granted then, and you can proceed first, please.
We have 6470514 Manitoba Limited, 486 Sherbrooke Street. Phone number is 13050118500. And on page 1, in terms of the vintage, we had 1920s. We had very little information on this, so 1914 is actually the year built on this, and an overhead picture. On page 3, again, you can see an overhead picture. If you turn to page 5, in terms of our approach, we took the CMHC rents into account in this case. So this area is considered Midland. And in terms of our average rent, these are predominantly, I believe, 1-bedrooms, 16 1-bedrooms. We have a rent of $728. We've applied an expense ratio of 57%. That is based also on two other comparables that we looked at 510 and 518 Maryland Street. We didn't have any expense ratios for this property, no information. Hence the reason that I'm not really contesting the non-compliance. In terms of the capitalization rate, we've applied a 6.6% capitalization rate. We have a net operating income of $57,945. Effective gross of $134,755. Capitalized at 6.6%, that gives us a value of $877,949, or $878,000. We have some of the sale information included in our brief, the most recent sale information. Also permit information that we've attached, and also the rental market report that we use to establish the rent. That is my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Martins.
Sorry, where is the sale information that you've included?
Sorry, it's in the appendix. So if you look at appendix, it would be page 10. That is the most recent sale. So I'm not saying that that's a reflection of today's value. That's just the most recent sale.
Do you have any details about that sale?
I would
Particular
imagine that,
location of the sale?
well, I would imagine that some renovations occurred after the sale, because, I mean, we've also included the permits in there.
Okay.
So I wanted you to have, a good look at what was done after the sale.
Thank you.
That's all your questions? Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Harden?
How did you come up with your expenses again, 57%?
Well, there were no expenses to draw from in this case, so we had to pick something. So we have a couple of other properties that we dealt with on the docket, which were 510 and 518 Maryland. In terms of the type of property, this one has had probably slightly more updates to it. However, based on the effective age, which is like 1945, 57% expense ratio, I don't think would be out of reason. But yes, there are no expenses to draw from, so it's not like we've taken 3 years of stabilized, or 3 years of expenses and then stabilized them. In this situation, we essentially have to do one of these. I think it's just from observation and seeing other properties, we've seen that older properties typically have higher expense ratios. We're not saying that it's over 60%, but typically higher expense ratios.
Okay, thank you.
Have you been in this property?
Just the drive-by.
Okay, that's, I don't have any further questions. Ms. Martins, please, are you ready?
Just for information, I have been in these apartments, but that was like 50 years ago.
They were new.
They were new.
I had a great aunt who lived there.
I think they've been updated.
It's probably updated since then, yeah.
On this property, we have an assessed value of $1,084,000. It's one building with 3 stories. It was built in 1914, but there has been an effective year built of 1945 placed on it, and I could not find the information on when that was done, so I'm not sure how long ago that was done, or what the renovations were that instigated that change. We have 14 suites and 12 outdoor parking spots, and if you look on page 2, we have 2 sales, 2 recent sales. One in 2012, which was a multi-role sale, and then the second one in 2012, where they sold just this building. Just to look at, because I'm not sure what their level of motivation was, but it looked like it was bought and immediately dumped. We've got 14 one-bedrooms. We have an average monthly rent per unit at $831.72, a vacancy rate of 2.6%, an expense rate at 49.02%, and a capitalization rate at 6.4%, giving us the $1,084,000. And on page 8, we have the map showing the location and 2 overhead pictures. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Yes. Are you sure that your suite count is correct?
I don't have any information given to compare it to, so no.
You know what? I believe that you are correct. 14 units. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Harden?
Again, the expense ratio 49.02, that's model driven.
It's small.
Okay, and that low ratio is probably because of the upgrades that were, or the renovations?
Yes, and there's a history of not getting income expense information from this property, so we haven't gone in at any point to adjust the quality or to look at any of that because we don't have anything to compare it to.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I had a question on the suite count, but it's been answered on the sales history. So, did you look into the 2012 sales?
I looked at our notes that we had on file.
Because it seems odd that,
We had a questionnaire submitted on the multi-role sale, but we have not received any information from the most recent sale. But there, the title search. Sorry. The title search shows that the sale appears to be bona fide.
so the January 2012 sale, was that multi-role?
That was a multi-role
That's
sale.
multi-role, oh, okay, that's the reason for the
Yeah.
difference. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the expense ratio, would the effective age play into that as well?
The effective age would play into that, as well as the quality or the condition of the property. So if we are able to go in and look at actuals and maybe adjust the characteristics of the building, then that would more accurately reflect, but we don't have any information, and it's been a long time since we've gotten any,
Okay.
so it's really hard for us to go in and adjust.
Okay, thank you, and thank you very much, and you need to summarize on this property?
Okay.
Perfect. Next property is 785 Beverly Street. And with amount of assessed value, you can proceed when you're ready, please.
Thank you. This is file number 19-2544, roll number 130315801000. The assessed value is $1,703,000. Classification is 20, residential 2. Liability status is T, taxable. This is an apartment building. We have 2 buildings that are 3 stories, built in 1973, with 24 suites and 12 indoor parking spots and 8 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, the suite mix that we have is 1 bachelor and 23 one-bedroom units, with an average monthly rent per unit at $697.35. The vacancy rate is 2.6%. The expense rate is 53.86%, and a capitalization rate at 5.3%, giving us the $1,703,000. Page 7 has the mail it, and page 7 through 9 has the income and expense information. And on the back, there's a map, again showing the location of the property, and 2 overhead pictures of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Again, everything is model driven,
Yes, it is.
and I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, any questions? I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Harden.
Yeah, no questions.
And I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro, you can go ahead, please.
Okay. If you turn to page 7 of my report, that is the income and expense summary. And here we've had a look at 3 years of income and expenses with a potential market gross of $180,927 stabilized, and that is including discounts. We have no vacancy, as the vacancy has already been included in the rent, so there's no need to factor for vacancy in this instance. We've added laundry income, parking income, and some miscellaneous income, bringing our effective gross to $192,247. We have expenses of $101,086, or 52.6%. A net operating income of $91,161, and a capitalized capitalization rate of 6%, giving us an estimated value of $1,519,357, or $1,519,000 rounded. And again, we've also included in this the income expenses for the years that we've looked at. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martins, questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Hardy?
Any questions?
Questions? So, your cap on this one is, where's the cap chart?
6%.
So, and that's, and this is just on the cusp of your, is that correct, age-wise? Yeah, because your caps change on your chart at 74, or 73?
Yeah.
74. 74, okay. Okay, that's all I had, thank you. Yes, I was just gonna do that. So since we're halfway through, oh, I need to summarize? Okay, since we're halfway through, we'll take a 5 to 10, just a 5-minute break, since we're moving along pretty quickly. Thank you. Good recess. Okay, thank you. Katie, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next property on the docket is 590 Simcoe Street, and we're dealing with assessed value.
I don't know which one is it.
Okay. You've got your,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so, Martins, please proceed.
This is file number 19-3468, roll number 130316-14000. The assessed value is $1,101,000, classification is 20, residential 2. Liability status is taxable. This is an apartment, one building, 2 stories, built in 1955 with 16 suites and 7 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, our income value summary shows that all 17 units are 1 bedroom with an average monthly rent per unit at $612.73, with a vacancy rate at 2.6% and an expense rate at 53.86% and a capitalization rate at 5.1%, giving us our $1,101,000. On page 7 and 8, we have our income information. And on page 9, we have a map showing the location between Ellis and Notre Dame and between Ingersoll and Sherbrooke. And we have an overhead picture of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Everything is modeled.
Yes.
That's my
That's
question.
the question. Mr. McIntyre?
Page 1, you're showing 16 suites, and page 2, you're showing 17,
Yes.
and the mailer's showing 17, so
I'm guessing 17 suites.
this is a typo, right? Okay, thank you. That was all my questions.
Mr. Hardy?
So it's in 1955, never been, no major upgrades to it?
Nothing that influenced a change in the year.
Okay, thank you.
Because I'm just noticing on their income and expense form, so their rent they're reporting is slightly lower than,
Yes, but then they treat laundry and parking separately.
yes. Oh, right, okay, yes, they have them here separate, that's right, thank you, okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Navarro?
In this case, we've stabilized again 3 years of income and expenses. Potential gross is 114,457. In this case, we've used a 2.6% vacancy. We have no information on vacancy. We've added laundry and parking income, giving us an effective gross of $113,732. Expenses of 52.4%, that's $59,573. Net operating income of $54,159. In terms of the capitalization rate, the capitalization rate is based on the age here. So if you see the bracket, 1946 to 1959, that is a 6.25 capitalization rate. That is what we've used. So capitalized at 6.25, the net operating income produces an estimate of 866,549, or 867 rounded. And in the appendix, we've included most recent assessment and the income and expenses that we've drawn from and used in this estimate. That is my presentation, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martins, questions?
No, thank you very much.
Mr. Horton?
No questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
So the issue is the cap rate, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I have no further questions, thank you. And the next property on the docket is right down the street at 577 Simcoe. Sorry, I'm just organizing myself here. Okay, and we're dealing with assessed value, and Ms. Martins, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. This is file number 19-3467. The roll number is 13031826000. The assessed value is $751,000. The classification is 20, residential 2, and liability status is T, taxable. This is an apartment building, one building with 3 stories, built in 1956 with 12 units and 6 outdoor parking spots. Oh dear. Apparently we have another typo here on the, so it shouldn't be 12 suites, it should be 13. On the income value summary, we have that 10 of the units are 1 bedroom and 3 of the units are 2 bedroom, giving us 13 units with an average monthly rent per unit at $600.85. We have a vacancy rate at 2.6%, an expense rate at 58.05%, and a capitalization rate at 5.1%, giving us the $751,000. The income and expense information is on 7 and 8 with a map and an overhead picture on page 9. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Yes. I think we're fairly close on net operating income, so I don't think that's an issue. In terms of the capitalization rate, if you can just explain to me, I think we've observed a couple of other properties where we have slightly newer properties, maybe slightly larger also, and they had a capitalization rate of 5.3. Can you explain this?
There is a difference. The model applies a difference based on a variety of things, and one of those things is size. So size is a factor in lowering the capitalization rate.
In this situation, and I understand the argument that you're trying to make, but would it not make sense that if you have a smaller unit with, or a smaller apartment building with less units, then there is inherently more risk to that property simply because 1 or 2 units go vacant and you're already at a high vacancy. So wouldn't a smaller apartment building simply present more risk than a larger one?
There may be more risk, but a smaller apartment building has a smaller sale price because it's smaller, and that opens it up to a wider base of potential purchasers.
Okay. But it wouldn't be your institutional purchasers, your REITs, or larger management companies that would be looking at this type of property, correct? This is not an I guess, I know people throw out that term investment grade properties, and I think what they're referring to is those institutional buyers, the pension funds, the REITs that purchase in different ways.
Yes, I think that people who
This is-
purchase $10 million properties are somewhat different than people who purchase properties that are under $1 million.
So, in that sense, if you're a small purchaser, you have to be capitalized properly, otherwise you're gonna find yourself in some hot water, right? So this, I mean, your statement that this opens it up to a larger body of potential purchasers, yes, but that also does carry some risk to it, because those potential purchasers also are not able to finance themselves in the same way that a REIT or a pension fund can finance themselves, correct?
That may be true, but if there are more people who are interested in buying properties that are a smaller size, then there is more of the supply-demand type of situation, and they do have, there are more people who are interested. That being said, the owners here, it's not a numbered company or a REIT or a group, it's people's names are attached as ownership, and that's what we look for with properties that are small like this, and that's the theory behind reducing the cap rate on smaller properties like this that have more opportunity for small purchasers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
Okay, do you have any cap rate information to justify your previous? I mean, I've heard that from a number of assessors, and yet I've yet to see any sales that.
If you look at, and once again, on page 5, it's not meant to be specific to the subject property, but it is intended to illustrate the accuracy of the model. So if you look at page 5, and we see that the property that has 103 suites, and again, this is the contentious one that there's lots of disagreement about the cap rate, whether it should be 5 or 5.13 or 5.25 or 5.5. But we have, our analysis shows that that's a 5% cap rate. And when you look at the property that has 36 suites, we see that that has a 4.84% cap rate, whereas the one with 23 suites has a 4.4% cap rate, and the one with 11 suites has a 4.03% cap rate. So that shows that the trend that we're discussing here is displayed on page 5.
Well, full cap rates doesn't the trend make, but.
Well, but that's, once again, this isn't specific for that. This is just a small
Yeah.
showing that we do have sales that are showing the trend. And this is just to substantiate the model. And once again, these 4 sales aren't what the entirety of what the model is based on.
Yeah. Okay, and there's been evidence from past hearings that some of those were, at least 1 or 2 of them were built with the intent to, or purchased with the intent to renovate.
In regards to that, one of them, the mailer said that it was purchased with the intent to renovate was less than 10% of the value, which is not significant enough to, by any of our standards, is not significant enough to delete it from consideration. Another one, the construction that was intended was roofing, which again is not one of the things that we take into consideration that would take it out of the running for it. And 2 of those properties, the initial information that we got did not include that there would be any additional renovations on the property. That came later. It came in an email in September of 2019, which is well after when we are required to do any of the analysis in the property.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I have no further questions, so Mr. Navarro?
Yeah. 577 Simcoe. If you turn to page 7, please. So, again, 13 suites, 10 one-bedrooms, and 3 two-bedrooms. You can see at the top also that there are 5 parking stalls. So that is a lower ratio than would typically be seen for an apartment building. We've looked at 3 years of income and expenses here. We've stabilized the potential gross at $83,909. We have, in this case, we've applied a vacancy of 2.6%. Effective gross of $83,258. That includes laundry and parking income. Expenses of $44,011 or 52.9%. That is a net operating income of $39,247, and that is capitalized at 6.25%, giving us a value of $627,953 or $628,000. And again, the capitalization rate information you can see on page 6. And also we've included, as per when we look at 3 years of income and expenses, we also include the particular 3 years of income and expenses that have been submitted. So I am open for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martin, some questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Harden, questions?
No questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
Again, it's the issue is the cap rate. Your NOIs are fairly close.
Fairly close.
Okay, thank you.
And I have no further questions, so thank you both very much. I'm going to assume again there's no need to summarize. So, next item, next property on the docket is 518 Maryland Street. Dealing with amount of assessed value. Ms. Martin, you can proceed whenever you're ready.
This is file number 19-2450, roll number 130-411-52300. The assessed value is $1,177,000. Classification is 40. It's an institutional property. Liability status is S. Taxable, school exempt. This is an apartment building, one building with 3 stories, built in 1927. We have 28 suites and 4 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, we have that 6 of the units are bachelor units and 22 of the units are 1 bedroom, with an average monthly rent per unit at $565.74, with a vacancy rate at 2.6%, expense rate at 58.05%, and a capitalization rate at 6.6%, giving us the $1,177,000. Page 7 and 8 are the submitted income and expense information. And page 9 has a small map showing that this property is on Maryland, close to Ellis, and it also has an overhead picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Everything is modeled, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That was my
That's
question.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Harden?
No questions.
And I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro, the floor is yours.
If you turn to page 7, the brief. Again, we've looked at 3 years of income and expenses that we've included in our appendix here. In terms of the information, there's some information missing, so we weren't completely able to do the typical analysis that we would do on a property. However, in terms of our effective gross income, we have an effective gross of $191,855. We have laundry and parking income on top of that, bringing that to $193,460. In terms of expenses, we were properly able to stabilize that. We have an expense ratio of 68.8%, 133,094. That gives us a net operating income of $60,366, and that is capitalized at 6.6%, or $914,638, or $950,000 rounded. I am open for questions.
Thank you. Ms. Martins, questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Harden, questions?
Okay, so your income is actually a bit higher than the city's, but the major difference is the expenses, which yours is, again, about 23,000 more than the cities there. Repair and maintenance, 14, I'm more or less thinking out loud here, 1,455 a unit?
Yeah.
Is that what you stabilized it at?
That's what it says there on the side, 1455.68 or 69 rounded. Yeah.
Okay, and the taxes, they're based on, you adjusted to be class code 20 then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
Well, my only question was expenses, and it's been answered. Thank you.
Sorry, and I may not have completely caught it when you were presenting there. So you said that you didn't have all the numbers, but did you say you had the correct numbers for the expenses?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
stabilized period? Okay. Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, so thank you very much. Okay. Next property is 727 Sargent Avenue. And we're dealing with amount of assessed value, and Ms. Martins, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. This is file number 19-3304, roll number 1303177000. The assessed value is $434,000. Classification is 20, residential 2. Liability status is taxable. This is an apartment building, 1 building, 2 stories, built in 1955 with 8 suites and 4 outdoor parking spots. On page 2, we have 4 bachelor units and 4 one-bedroom units, with an average monthly rent per unit at $618.32. We have a vacancy rate at 2.6%, expense rate at 64%, and capitalization rate at 4.8%, giving us the $434,000. Page 7 is the submitted income and expense information. And on the back page, we have a map showing that this is on the corner of Sargent and Beverly. And we have an overhead picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
Yes. Have you been to this location by any chance?
I've driven past.
Yeah. Do you think that it's a good location?
There's a lot of factors that play into a good location. The neighborhood has its issues.
Yes. I would agree with that. I'm not gonna elaborate, but it appears to be a poor location. Everything else is modeled, and again, here I guess I'm failing to understand this. I understand the argument that you're trying to make, but again, our cap rate is going down, further down, 4.8. And 4.8% cap rates are typical for fairly risk-free investments. At that point, you're getting into the bond markets and things like that. So I guess the question that I would ask is, why would somebody invest in something like this when you have alternatives that are probably less riskier?
I think when you're looking at investment, you also have to look at price, and once again, we're looking at a price of $434,000 for an 8-unit property. People buy houses for similar prices. So when you're looking at comparing building a house to buying an apartment building, or if you're looking at who is capable of investing in a property like this, if it's somebody who's trying to break into the market, this is a property that instead of buying a house and a rental unit, they can buy this for significantly less than a lot of other units and live in one of the units while renting out 7 units. There's a lot of reasons, but I think that we need to look at that it's not something that is, if you're looking at investment grade properties that are people that are buying multi-million-dollar properties, that's not who is buying properties at this price point. So I think that this is, we're comparing apples and oranges, and we need to look at what the numbers provide from the sales that we have been given the information for, and this is what the market is showing according to our model.
And this property hasn't sold, correct?
This property, I don't have any sales on this one, but I'm speaking in generalities. If properties that are valued similar price point as houses are, then this is potentially a purchaser who could make the decision to buy an apartment, an income producing apartment building as opposed to buying a house and work at it that way.
Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I hate to dwell on the cap rate, but this is a 1955 building.
Yes.
Your 20th to 80th percentile goes from 4.9 to 5.3.
Yes.
And yet you're at 4.8 outside of that range?
Yes, we are. A lot of the buildings that we're looking at that go into our model with cap rates are significantly bigger than this property. So that's one of the trends that we've seen in evaluating the sales, is that the smaller properties have a lower cap rate.
Has there been any upgrades to your knowledge to this building?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, on cap rate again, I'm looking at this, I got $500,000 in my pocket, and I'm looking for investment. Why would I invest in a property that's not gonna give me any return on 64% of the money that I invest in it?
I think it depends on how you're looking at it. I think, once again, like I stated, that the Winnipeg market is showing that people who are purchasing houses, that are purchasing small apartment buildings there's a competitive market for it, and that this is what the cap rates have shown from our data analysis of the sales that are currently in the city.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That's it. Just the expense ratio, I think that's close to, if not the highest we've seen today, and if this is model driven, what's your sense of that? Because this building is in a similar neighborhood to some of the other similar age.
I think with showing with the model, the expense rate is showing the age and the quality and condition, and that's what's driving the expense rate.
Okay, so, and you had said there, to your knowledge, there's been no renovations to this property.
That doesn't mean there hasn't been any. There hasn't been any that were big enough to influence.
Actually, may I direct another question to Lisa?
You may, go ahead.
Is there any possibility that this may have been adjusted by someone? Just because I'm also failing to see some of the logic in terms of the expense ratio.
It may have been adjusted before, like previously, and the
Right.
adjustment may have been carried over. It could also be the quality or
Right.
any of those factors.
Because the expense ratio is not that far off of what the actuals are. And again, in some other instances, for older properties, the model was predicting a lower expense ratio. So, like, again, there is a possibility that somebody may have adjusted it in that process.
Yes,
At some point,
that's a
previously. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Navarro. You can go ahead, please.
And if you turn to page 7, so you'll see page 5, then a blank page, and then what should be page 7, and that is the income and expense summary. So here we looked at 3 years of income and expenses. We have a potential gross of $61,028. 2.6% vacancy we've applied on this. We've added laundry and parking income and some miscellaneous income. That gives us an effective gross of $62,519. We have $39,157 in expenses. That is a 62.6% expense ratio. A net operating income of $23,363. Capitalized 6.25%. That gives us a value of $373,802, or $374,000 rounded. And again, we've included the income and expenses that we've used and looked at, so I am open for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
no questions. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
No questions.
And I have no questions, so thank you very much. Okay, so the final property on today's docket is 484 Toronto Street, dealing with assessed value. And you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. This is file number 19-2329. Roll number 130402625500. The assessed value is $408,000. Classification is 20, residential 2, with a liability status of T, taxable. This is an apartment building, 1 building, 3 stories. Actual year built is 1917. Effective year built is 1925. The number of suites is 12, and the number of outdoor parking spots is 4. On page 2, our income value summary shows that all 12 units are 2-bedroom, with an average monthly rent per unit at $620.58. We have applied a 2.6% vacancy rate, a 70% expense rate, and a 6.4% capitalization rate, giving the value of $408,000. On page 7, we have the income and expense information, which goes into more detail on page 8, and a map showing the location of the property and an overhead picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, questions?
All model driven. However, in this case, the capitalization rate is high.
Yes, it is.
Age and size, location.
The expense rate is also high. I'm going to assume that there was an adjustment to quality with some of the characteristics.
Right, so the expense ratio would have been adjusted, that's not something the model would have produced, correct?
No, it looks like it has been.
Okay. Have you driven past this location?
No, I have not.
Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harden, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no.
And I have no questions, so Mr. Navarro, please proceed.
Okay, so we have a potential market gross of $89,364, and we've looked at quite a few years of income and expenses in this situation. Vacancy 11%, and we have very minimal laundry and parking income. So we have an effective gross of $79,534. In terms of the expenses, we have expenses of $61,016. That is a 76.6% expense ratio. Net operating income of $18,518. And in terms of the capitalization rate, we have a 6.9% capitalization rate. The indicated market value for assessment purposes is $268,381, or $268,000. On the following pages, you'll see the repair and maintenance for 484 Toronto. We have in the appendix the assessment information, also the income expenses that we've used in the preparation of this estimate. And I am open for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Martin's question.
The 6.9% cap rate is somewhat above what the chart for pre-1946 would suggest.
That's right. This was a special case.
Okay, thank you.
One of the worst examples that I've seen, so. And you can see in terms of the income and expenses that this is not, in terms of an investment, not the greatest investment. It is being used for a purpose to provide social housing. As an investment, it is a poor investment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harden, any questions?
Yeah, on the vacancy, is that the actual vacancy that has been experienced?
Yes. So you'll see that we've also included through the multiple years of income expenses. Again, this is social housing, so there tends to be a slightly higher turnover. On top of that, this is not a great location. So it does experience high vacancy. The model is simply not capturing that.
Yeah, okay. It seems a lot of these social housing tends to be a wait list on them, though.
Yeah, this is Winnipeg Housing Rehabilitation Corporation, so it's not manageable housing. But I believe they also work on a wait list. But again, we're also just documenting the vacancy. One of the things that I mentioned here is that when you have larger buildings, obviously that vacancy is mitigated by the size of the building, right? So if you have a 100-suite apartment, you have 2 big units, it's not going to present much of a problem to that building. Here we're talking about a unit or a building that has only 12 units in it, so you get some vacancy, some even small vacancy. It's going to have a large effect on it. But in terms of again, in terms of the vacancy, it's been consistently high, as you can see. It's gone from 10.2 in 2013 to 11% in 2017. We've put it in at 11%, but I mean, that is not typical for a building. And also in terms of the expenses, I mean, it's 1369. I mean, part of the problem here is that they're not collecting that much rent to begin with.
Yeah, that would drive up your expense ratio, because if you're not getting the rent, your ratio would be higher. All right. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
And I think my questions have been answered, so thank you very much. That concludes today's hearing. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
That went nice and smoothly and quickly, thank you. For 10 properties. Thanks. And you made it through okay.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go home.
Okay.